why is this day, this week, different from all other days and weeks? Why is this, in effect, Constitution season? Why is September 17th technically Constitution Day, and we are meeting really in commemoration of Constitution Day and Constitution Week? So here's the point. You'll see now why I rudely, I apologize, interjected when he invoked Periclean Athens and Pericles' funeral oration by telling you it was 5th century BC. If you're a Christian, you do divide the world into BC and AD. I believe you should do the same thing if you're a secularist. There is in the world BC, before the Constitution, and AD, after the document. What we are here to celebrate, this is a nonpartisan point, I hope liberals and conservatives both can understand this, is nothing less than a year that begins in September of 1787, that is nothing less than the hinge of human history, of modern history, the year that changes everything in the world, year that begins on September 17th. The modern world is made in America. It's made in a certain time and place. That year is 1787-88, beginning of September 17th, when right across the way, 3 blocks from what's now the National Constitution Center in Independence Hall, 39 names are affixed to a document. And looking backwards, you could just focus on the signing ceremony. That's actually not I think the drama. That people who had met behind closed doors for a summer hatched a plan. That had happened in the world before, and even though these were great people meeting behind closed doors to hatch a plan, a George Washington, a Benjamin Franklin, some of the world's greatest figures, great as that was, is people behind closed doors hatching a plan. And they affix their name to it, and that's pretty spectacular too, but that's not the drama. That's not the hinge of human history. What happens next is the thing goes public. It is published by publishers in publications. There's freedom of the press, you see, even before a First Amendment comes along. And for a year, the thing is short. It's short not so that judges can make stuff up. I was about to use another word. Not so they can make stuff up, but so that people 229 years ago could actually read it, start to finish, and decide whether they were for it or against it. And so the publishers are actually publishing it, start to finish. Nothing like this has ever happened on this scale in human history, because now let's remember what BC looked like before the Constitution. Let's remember August of 1787, or August of 1786, or August of 1686, or 1586, or all the 86s, all the way back to Periclean Athens and before, all the way back to the mists of time. Democracy, in August 1786, you look around the world, and outside America, the Brits have some self-government, although they have a hereditary monarch that no one voted for, who has real power, unlike, let's say, today's Queen Elizabeth. Someone who actually, doesn't just sort of reign, but rules, who makes war and peace and treaties and picks prime ministers and fires them at will and has massive power. A House of Lords that no one voted for, that really is the upper house of the legislature, massive power. But even with all that, they have jury trial, they have a House of Commons, they have some self-government in Britain. There's some self-government in Switzerland, which has no banks, no cities, no commerce. Mitt Romney's not interested in them, and then everyone else leaves them alone because you have to charge up the hill and there's nothing when you get to the top. That's self-government in the world outside of America in August 1787. That's it. And you go back to 1786 and 1686 and 1586. There's almost no democracy in the history of planet Earth. Yes, there are a few democracies that make a go of it in cities no bigger than Oxford, Mississippi, than Oxford, Ohio, or Oxford, Mississippi, for that matter. Periclean Athens under the Clicentic Constitution. These are people who worship the same god or gods. They speak a common language. They profess. They're not warm weather and cold weather people getting together. It's not even like northern Ohio and southern Ohio, because those are actually two very different kinds of types. Not multiple time zones. Tiny little city-states. Pre-imperial Rome, ancient Athens, Florence, and they make democracy work for a little bit, and then they flicker out. They can't deal with internal dissension. They can't repel external attack. The history of the world, as of this year that changes everything, is basically a history of kings, emperors, czars, sultans, Mughal lords, tribal chieftains, thugs, all. That's the world. For all of recorded history, with tiny little exceptions. And then, in this year that changes everything, and this is the nonpartisan point, we, the people of the United States, actually put the Constitution to a vote up and down a freaking continent. And ordinary people got to decide how they and their posterity would be governed. And they got to vote on the thing, which they never got to do even in Periclean Athens. One person handed the law down from on high. So on the lawgiver, you had never really had anything like a continent voting on the Constitution. We didn't vote on the Declaration of Independence in 1776 as Americans. We didn't vote on any of the state constitutions in 1776. The British Constitution never reduced to a text that Parliament voted on, much less the British people. British people in all of history voted on three things, and you lived through them all. Brexit was the most recent one, in imitation, you see, of the American model. Because, so before this, there's almost no democracy in the world. Articles of Confederation not put to a vote. There were a couple of state constitutions but now we're bringing it to scale by doing it continentally, since he mentions Google. I'm actually from the Silicon Valley area. The money is made when you bring things to scale. That's the big idea, okay? Up and down the continent. And now look at your world. A world in which half the planet is self-governing by population and landmass. A world in which Western Europe is democratic and Eastern Europe is democratic because that wall came down. And 1 billion people in India are governing themselves with a written constitution of free and fair elections and religious equality and multiple political parties alternating in power and judicial review and enforceable rights on an American model. That didn't exist. That's 1 billion people. And they're governing themselves on the American model. That didn't exist when my parents were born in undivided India, when they're ruled by Brits that they never voted for, a parliament that they never voted for, a king that they never voted for, just like the American revolutionaries. So that's the nonpartisan point. The year that changes everything, the hinge of human history. The world is becoming more American. On the American model, there's no democracy, then we, the people, in this year that changed everything, did ordain and establish a constitution with free speech and widespread voting, and the world would never be the same and has never been the same. That's why we celebrate this moment, because it's pretty striking. There is BC and AD, before the Constitution, after the document. That's what makes your modern world.